Welcome to the Voices of Visegrad, the video recap of the most important events in the Visegrad Group countries: Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary and Poland, brought to you by the Visegrad Insight. My name is Magda Przedmojska, and in this episode we will cover Czech parliamentary elections, Slovak fiscal struggle, Russian drones violating Polish airspace. We will also cover the European Commission's approval to reallocate frozen EU funds for Hungary. Obviously, the most important topic will be recent parliamentary elections in Czechia and how they played out. We have collected a couple of voices for you from the Visegrad Group countries to assess the situation.
Welcome to the Voices of Visegrad. I'm Magda Jakubowska. I'm the editorial director at the Visegrad Insight. Today we will look into the Czech Republic after the elections. The landscape is that Mr. Andrej Babiš and his ANO party has won almost 35%, which gives them 80 seats in the 200-person parliament of the Czech Republic. This means that to govern, he will need to form a coalition, and most likely it will be formed with Mr. František Matejka, the leader of the Motorist Party, a right-wing, libertarian, very Eurosceptic party compared to Alternative für Deutschland, the AfD, that is a member of the European Party Patriots for Europe that Mr. Viktor Orban has created a few years ago. According to analysis, disinformation prior to the elections on October 3 and 4 in the Czech Republic has been record high. We could see sources that are tied up to Kremlin, that are funded by the Kremlin, but we also have seen domestic ones, like for example Nova Republika, that was funded by Mr. Ivan David, an MEP from SPD far-right party, that is considered now to join the governing coalition in the Czech Republic.
There is a lot of unknowns. During the election campaign, Babiš didn't talk about cooperation with other Central European partners. We all expect will be pragmatic businessmen, politicians, most of all. He followed public opinion. Public opinion is Czech-oriented, and it reflects itself toward the European Union and other economic and political connections Czech Republic might have in the future. So I do not believe much change. Czech Republic is a very important trade partner for Poland and vice versa, and I expect this to remain so. When political cooperation is concerned, it will be all about Europe and Ukraine, and here Babiš will be much more reserved, more skeptical, more expecting things rather to happen than to shape them.
Are you expecting any change in policies towards Ukraine's integration with the EU, but specifically also with the NATO? What steps are there? What we can see with the upcoming government, how it will be played out?
Well, now in this campaign before elections, Ukraine is of course playing quite an important role because the opposition parties, unfortunately including ANO movement of Mr. Babiš, they are pretty critical about our support for Ukraine. ANO movement is actually not against the support of Ukraine as such. They have some particular problems with some concrete projects like ammunition initiative, and I hope that after election they will change their approach.
And now let's move on to Slovakia, to the economic prognosis by its national bank.
In Slovakia, the ruling coalition led by Prime Minister Robert Fico passed controversial constitutional amendment with only 90 votes. It defines the gender strictly as male and female. It restricts adoption to married couple. It interferes or increases the state control over school curricula, but also limits the EU law over the national one. The Venice Commission has already reacted and warned Mr. Fico that many of the vague formulations like national identity or cultural and ethical issues risk the arbitrary interpretation by the authorities. Critics say that this move is distraction from fiscal economical struggles. Slovakia's National Bank forecast shows that inflation will remain among Eurozone's highest, growth will slow, unemployment will rise, and living standards will stagnate.
And now let's listen to former Minister Peter Balik commenting on how fiscal stability could be achieved.
Slovakia's economy is entering a challenging period. According to the National Bank of Slovakia's autumn 2025 forecast, the GDP growth is expected to reach about 1% in the current year. The inflation remains high at 4%, and the labor market is still under pressure due to the consolidation measures of the government and the additional burden that was created on businesses. In my opinion, the government should focus on the following three fiscal policy areas. The first one is the direct support to the most vulnerable Slovak households that are mostly affected by rising energy prices. The second one should target public investments and utilization of EU funds in order to stimulate the economy, create additional jobs, support new infrastructure in the country, and enhance research, development and innovation projects. The third measures should focus at reducing government costs and optimizing the expenditures of public institutions. In my opinion, these three policy areas would create a solid economic ground for Slovakia and for a more resilient and competitive economy for the future.
And now over to Poland, where NATO Article 4 was invoked after Russian drones breached Polish airspace. What is the meaning of this, and how did other EU countries react?
In the beginnings of September, Polish airspace has been breached by Russian drones. Two of them were coming from Belarus. Poland has deployed its F-16s and was supported by the Dutch F-35s or Italian AWACS and other NATO allies. Following the incursion, Poland invoked NATO's Article 4, prompting consultations on security threats. NATO allies, including US, UK and Germany, have enhanced their presence in the eastern flank, while the EU decided to build a so-called drone wall to protect the eastern borders.
And now let's listen to the keynote, The Future of Europe Power, held by MEP Michał Szczerba during the opening of this year's Europe Future Forum.
This is not only an attack on Poland, but on the EU and NATO territory, and it's the first time NATO has been forced to act in this way. Wojtek said that ideas matter. I would say also at such a critical moment, alliances matter. We are of course grateful for the words of the United States that every single square centimeter of NATO will be defended, but words must be followed by action. And today the US should support its oldest allies rather than explore deals behind our backs with Moscow. Together we can develop trade and innovation, but only when security is guaranteed.
Hey there! Let's pause on the Polish politics for a second. If you're enjoying this video, why not join us with a Visegrad Insight subscription? It unlocks all our online content and gets you into our online events. Plus, a special treat for you listeners, head to visegradinsight.eu, choose a yearly subscription and apply code Visegrad25 to enjoy your 25% discount.
However, the European Commission has approved Hungary's request to reallocate 545 million euros of frozen EU funds to more accessible budget lines. It warned that the money will remain frozen until Budapest addresses corruption concerns.
And now let's listen to Gabor Berceli, director of the Schumann Institute, commenting on the impact of energy dependency on Hungarian politics.
Behind the politics, there is also money. It is useful to recall that the contracts and transactions take place not between governments, but companies, often with hidden beneficiaries. Then there is the election year to think about. If indeed the sanctions will result in higher energy prices, higher utility prices, this is bad news for any government facing election. In an election year, normally governments prefer helicopter money and spending and not exactly cuts and facing dissatisfaction. So that means Hungary has a narrow room for maneuvering, stuck between energy diversification and security, then also pressures from the EU and at the same time domestic politics.
And that's all for today. Please remember to follow us and don't miss the next episode of the Voices of Visegrad.